I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the original gang of the Dude and Golan. It's good to see everybody.
It's good to be back.
Lot to talk about, and let's get right to it, men, because this is right. I know this is something that drives you crazy. It's something that drives me crazy, but this is something that really, really, really grinds your gears. I think that was from the Family Guy. But it's this Ilhan Omar thing, and she is coming blasting against ICE officers, which one other thing, I don't know how you're not arrested for pretty much calling for attacks of ICE officers or law enforcement, but what the hell is she still doing in the country?
You know, they're all lying. She's saying that her big case against this federal agent that shot the woman that tried to run him over, she's saying that police officers shouldn't be standing in front of cars. Like, what is she talking about? She comes from a nation, and she's trying to turn this country into her home country. So, as we said 1,000 times on the show, she married her brother, committed immigration fraud, allegedly. Kick her out. Prosecute her. Go after her. You know, I heard someone say, and this guy's not the brightest dude, but he is an attorney, and he's always filing lawsuits against everyone and their brother for, claiming to protect Trump. Trump wants nothing to do with this guy. Anyway, he was saying that the right likes Ilhan Omar because it gives them a lightning rod. And I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree because she's indoctrinating more Americans to that ideology, that point of view, that skewed point of view. But there's this one person that keeps on messaging me on Instagram trying to show me the liberal point of view. Always, hey man, it's been 16 weeks. Have you changed your views on this, that, and the other? And right. And I'm always coming back to them with a whole litany of things that I am happy about that this administration is doing. But the one thing those people never do, they never talk about Lincoln Riley. They never talk about the Americans that were killed or raped or strangled or mutilated by these illegal aliens. They'll always find the one semi-undocumented. There was a guy in, I forgot what city he was in, but ICE got him. It's on video. He got a little roughed up. Turns out he was in a car with 3 illegal aliens, and he told the officer who pulled him over that I'm not in this country legally. He couldn't speak English. That was another thing. He was born here, apparently, that's what they claim, but he wasn't able to speak English, and he also couldn't speak Spanish. He spoke some weird dialect up some mountain tribe in Mexico, and there was some communication issues, and he told them apparently that he's not here legally. They arrested him, they detained him for a day and a half or whatever it was, and then they substantiated his legal status and let him go. But that's the poster child. That's what they run with. They'll never talk about the innocent kids that were killed, murdered, mutilated, whatever, abused by these people. As far as Ilhan Omar goes, she takes the wrong take, the wrong view. She is anti-American, and she has a huge amount of liberal, obese, white cat ladies that are backing her up with everything they say. These people don't even know what they're talking about. You ever see the people that are at these protests interviewing? And they're like, what do you have a problem with? Oh, he's a fascist. Why? ICE, immigration. Obama deported more people. You're just a Trump fanatic. And then they, cut off. You can't talk to these people. There's no.
I've been saying that to you for ages.
But it's also the same exact thing with the Tucker crowd. The exact same mental illness. And that's what's so shocking is that usually the woke left, we expected it from. I never expected it from the right.
Oh, you should have listened to who?
There we go.
Judah Meyer Friedman. But Golan, he raises some great points, not just the one that he brought up, but because just on a total side note, Golan, over the weekend, I had this moment where I just said to myself, there's so much stuff that is going on in the world, the news, the people of Iran struggling, and which we'll get to, is more important than us talking about Tucker Carlson. If he decides to destroy the Republican Party and they allow it, and people like whoever his inner circle allows this to happen, that's on them. We've brought it up a lot, and we'll still bring it up. But getting back to Ilhan Omar, reminder, she's worth $25 million. Okay.
Yeah, she was worth a fraction of that. She was worth 100,000 or come tens of thousands early on. Her salary is a little over 100,000, and she's suddenly worth tens of millions. Which right away, I understand that government in general is an exercise in corruption a lot of the time, but there are certain people you can put a finger on and say there's something else going on here, whether that is Ilhan Omar, whether that is Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether that's Nancy, all of these people that suddenly became multi millionaires as a result of them having insider information or them being able to utilize their position in order to allow corruption to happen underneath them. Ilhan Omar being the poster child for that, of course, what's going on in Minnesota. And by the way, she's long been anti-American. This is something that you can go back years, where there have been accusations of this for her declaring that she is Somali over anything else. There's been stuff where she's asked whether she even needs to pledge allegiance to the United States flag, and makes comments about the government, makes comments about law enforcement agents and all the rest. The idea of her going after like Somaliland deals with Ethiopia, as a means of helping her home country, but not her adopted country, supposedly, is right there on the surface. She always talks about how America is a country led by idiots. She's constantly putting down or undermining or straight up just pulling illegal crap when it comes to the United States. And someone that I still cannot believe that is someone in any kind of position of power. It's shocking.
Well, that I could believe. I can't believe how they haven't figured out a way to get her the hell out of the country. But
just to clarify, I believe that there's a group of Somalis and a group of people that are also un-American that voted her into office. I just can't believe this is where we are.
Yeah. But I just want to point out something about you that remember, you don't only just make money on stock trades, okay? That's not just the only way of making money. And I don't think Ilhan Omar, I would love to see her tax returns. But remember, you could get paid a lot of money to speak, that community.
Well, apparently the way her scam worked, because it's a scam, the way her scam worked was the husband opened up a consulting company in Minnesota that had no money in the bank. They were doing no business. She became her husband, this new guy, not her brother.
She became Tim Minette.
The white guy, they're all her AOC.
I was about to say the same exact thing. Just so
they're all claiming white man is the biggest threat to Americans when we all know that's not true. But she married this guy, and then anyone who wanted to do business in Minnesota would go to her husband and say, "Hey, I'm going to hire your consulting firm. They get paid. They got paid millions and millions of dollars." And he would whisper in her ear, "Hey, Somali guy wants to open up another daycare. Let's get it fast-tracked approved." And then done. Another interesting thing that Nick Shirley brought up was that when Kamala Harris picked Tim Walz to be her running mate, he raised the most amount of money in a single day from any politician running for office, especially for president, vice president, but the presidential ticket. How did he do that? This no-name guy from Minnesota raised more money than Joe Biden raised for Barack Obama, than Pence raised for Trump. Like any vice president in the history of the country, how'd he do that? He just went to all of his Somali scam friends and said, "Hey, I need you guys to kick up." And he got something like $30 million or whatever it was in a day.
I understand he went to a lot of daycares. I just heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to also point out that you were mentioning that the white guy husband was getting money from all the people in Minnesota, but don't forget that he started his business with a negative net worth, and then Ilhan Omar took money from her own campaign, money she'd received from not only taxpayers, people who had donated money to her campaign, and gave her husband $3 million to start his business. So it's not just that other people gave money. She gave other people's money herself directly to her husband, which contributed to her own network.
Right. It's also important, again, to say, listen, there's nothing stopping an organization from paying her $500,000 a speaking engagement. So every daycare center could have been paying. I want to see the books. We're all in agreement on Ilhan Omar, get the hell out of the country. And that goes for...
I vote for Judah to do the audit. I saw a really interesting post from...
Thanks. I'm the guy.
You're the guy. From a guy who broke down why the Somali thing is not a racial thing. And he is...
Because it's not?
He's an Ethiopian. And he just contrasted the Ethiopian community in America. They are not scamming. They are not stealing. They are not sending billions of dollars back to Ethiopia. They are not on stage railing against America. And he goes, "You know what this is? the difference. What's the difference between Ethiopians and Somalis? They both have big foreheads. They all look kind of similar. Like I couldn't tell an Ethiopian from a Somali. Besides the extreme inbreeding with the Somalis, where they have the ears and the skinny head and big forehead, they just literally look deformed. But as far as they both come from very similar parts of the world, but one of them is Christian nation, and they're not doing all that first cousin marrying and inbreeding, and they don't hate America. They're grateful for coming here, and they are grateful for, the American generosity. The Somalis came here and they are trying to colonize. They hate America. They want to rip it off for all it's worth. And, sure, there might be 7 innocent Somalis in Minnesota that had no part of this thing, but for the most part, that community really got involved and was active. In order to sign up thousands of kids to these daycares, they needed to have the parents of these kids and all of that other stuff go along with it. So it was a giant, massive kickback scheme. This should be some of the easiest cases for the FBI to break. You go to the parents of the kids that signed up. Your kid was not at this location, yet you signed up for it. You're going to be charged with whatever. And then they just turn. They spill the beans. They say who set them up and go all the way up the food chain, all the way to Ilhan Omar. Get Rashida Tlaib. Get all of them.
Well, different states, but probably the same issue.
Well, I want to go back to Omar's comments about what happened with Renee Good, okay? Because it's important to understand how she is framing this and how she's lying about it and how, as men pointed out, she's indoctrinating other people. So it's the idea of saying, oh, I don't mind that she makes all these comments is like saying, I don't mind that TikTok exists because then we can have something to point at. No, it's a problem because she goes on Face the Nation and she gives a whole speech about, first of all, I'm anti-federal officer. Everyone should be filming our own federal officers and ICE agents in order to catch them if they have one infraction or taken out of context or whatever it is. So she's actively saying that. But the other thing is what men pointed out, you kind of said it glibly that she's like, oh, they're jumping in front of cars. But she literally is making the case that ICE agents and DHS agents are running in order to get in front of cars. She said, I quote, the other officer who can clearly see the car is moving moves towards the front of the car as if it's deliberately. And she frames it as Renee Good is sitting in her car, peacefully waving cars to go by. And then they did this thing. Why is this such a fallacy? Well, first of all, you can see on the video that's not true. But beyond that, can you imagine if a crime had been committed? This is a woman who parked in the middle of the street. She's obstructing traffic. She's obstructing federal officers. So can you imagine? That's a crime. So can you imagine if a crime has been committed and instead of saying, I'm going to block your path of escape, if you have now committed a crime and we are going to prosecute you for that crime or arrest you for that crime, my job is to get out of the way and let you run. Does it even make sense? So even if the officer had moved towards the head of the car in order to stop her from running, because now there was going to be retribution for her crime, to frame that as if he was requesting or in some way inviting her to run him over or try to hit him or try to kill him is ludicrous and absolutely belies the facts. So for someone to hear that on Face the Nation and think, now I understand the situation, she is literally lying about it, indoctrinating other people into believing a lie. That's not just un-American. That should be illegal if it's not.
Listen, you're both 100% on point on this subject.
Let's just, before we move on, I fear you might be moving on. I just want to say something.
Well, I am moving on. So you don't have to fear it.
These people are absolute bold-faced liars, and that's what it comes down to. They are out there claiming that the FBI agents are like Gestapo. They're comparing Trump to Hitler. They're riling up moronic people like this Good lady, whatever her name was, that got killed by the officer. Tragic story.
It actually wasn't her name, but yeah.
Renee Good, what's her name?
Yeah, she changed her name to Good.
Yeah.
She married a woman named Good. Now, it's also important to find out, because my heart was broken for her 3 or 4 kids that were now going to grow up without a mom. She already lost her kids. She lost her kids.
She didn't lose them. She chucked them.
Yeah. She went before a hearing with the judge after she was her partner was brought up on charges for abusing her children. Her partner was putting out lit cigarettes on her children's arms. And the judge said, it's either your kids or this person, not both. You're going to lose custody if you remain in this relationship. She chose the relationship. She abandoned her children. That's the poster child for the lefties, this dead, disgusting human being who put her kids' safety second to her relationship with this abuser And then she put her own life in the way by attacking federal agents and lost it. Tragic, avoidable, preventable, but all her fault.
I got to be honest, I do want to wrap this up. I love what you just said, and I love everything both of you have just said, because I think they're extremely great talking points for anybody that is listening to the show. The only person I look at this as tragic for is the ICE officer and his family, and the other ICE officers out there that are constantly being having crap thrown at them, harassed, spit on, and every day they have to worry about their families because of being doxxed, of being attacked, and all that stuff. So that to me is the most tragic thing in this story, is the ICE officers and all federal agents. That's why I love the sheriff from Chicago, who happens to be black, who came out yesterday and totally stood with law enforcement, of all forms of law enforcement. Good for him for doing that. That's who we should feel tragedy for, Golan. Nobody else in this situation. I'm tired of like this fake sympathy. I can't fake sympathy. I'm sorry if I can't. This woman abdicated everything good in life that was meaningful for her to do this crap. So screw her. And I pray for the ICE person's family. So is it okay now if we move on, guys?
Yeah, maybe we can all just listen when an officer tells us to get out of the car or to stop or to put
Watch
our hands
the Chris
on the
Rock
wheel.
video. That Chris Rock video.
Great one. I'm
I
going
was
to put it
about
on
to
our
reference
Instagram
it,
and
by
our
the
X.
way.
Yeah, the Chris Rock video should be like, they should put that on television on loop. If it's one of the greatest videos I've
It's
ever
going
seen.
up on our Instagram and our X account. It'll be up there.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on a little bit. Obviously, Iran it's wild. I mean, they're finally back up online. I guess Elon was able to figure out something with Starlink, and they were able to
jamming the Starlinks.
No, they're
The
getting out
Russians and the
signal.
Chinese were helping them jam it.
Yeah, but they obviously moved the satellites or did something, because we're getting more feeds out of what's going on in Iran right now. Go on. But first of all, it's important to note that they don't have their money is worth zero. Their money is worth absolutely zero. And this idea of negotiating with anybody there is asinine, moronic.
Are you referring to the two moves that they made where they saw that, I went to sleep last night and it looked like it might all be over and the revolution might have won. And then I woke up this morning and the first headline I read was Iran reaches out to Trump to negotiate the nuclear deal. Or are you talking about the fact that Iran reached out to Steve Witkoff to have a conversation, undermining Trump, and also what a desperation move? Which one are you talking about?
Well, it's part of a larger story that I will be getting into. But yes, this Witkoff, it was the finance minister that reached out to Witkoff, so we explained, who is not in Iran at the time. I believe he's in France, right? And but it's just go on. They don't have any bargaining chips right now. You have no bargaining chips, and there are people that are being mowed down on the street. The president made a red line. I love President Trump. Everybody that knows, that listens to this program, knows how much I love President Trump. Crossed the red line. They have crossed the red line.
Well,
no negotiation.
Can you tell me what the red line he said there was?
If they start killing the Iranians and start shooting them down on the street, that's his red line.
Okay, so and we know that the IRGC is using live ammunition, machine guns, heavy suppression tactics against the civilians, the demonstrators. We know that's happening.
Yeah,
so and we know that 1,000 at least. Some people are reporting 500, 600, but from people I've talked to that are closer on the ground, we're probably around 1,200, if not up to 2,000 at this point. And there's probably much more that we don't know about. So when is the red line crossed, and what happens next?
Well, the red line, you see, the red line was crossed, and none of us are. I'm not gonna pretend that I know what happens next is, but I know there has to be a next, Mend, because you're seeing images tonight. You saw images this morning of the pro-regime people, right, which were all older age men, their families, everybody that's being paid by the government with worthless money right now. If I were the United States, I would drop in dollars. That's freedom, is sending in money, or Israel sending in shekels, actually things that have value. But, Mend, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know what the attack should be, but I do know that unless the Ayatollah is gone and his regime and the IRCG is gone, IRGC is gone. So thank you. There's my dyslexia coming in. I'm not dyslexic. That's but the IRGC comes in. You can always blame that on dyslexia. And I know that thousands will be executed within weeks after this happens.
Well, by the way,
it's unacceptable.
And there's at least 10,000 that have been arrested too. I
Yeah.
would throw that
Yeah,
in for our listeners.
10,000 has been arrested. They have something like 150,000 IRGC fighters in the country. Then they have their Sharia law police, which is probably another 100,000 people that run around with sticks and guns and beat up people that are not adhering to Sharia law. And then the Iranian military just said that they're going to join the government, which is a big step because the military and the IRGC and the government, this government actually created two armies in the country, one that was loyal to the Ayatollah and another one which was meant to defend the country. They're all on the same page now to oppress these people. The thing that I'm going to say is that Trump has always been consistent. He was consistent with Iran the first time. Hey, you got 30 days to make a deal. If not, we're coming in. Day 31, kaboom. He told Maduro, same thing. I'm going to give you an off-ramp, let you get out of the country. We want regime change. He didn't listen. He challenged Trump, come and get me. Boom, he got come and got. Now you have this, where he set a red line. They went out and killed a whole bunch of their people. So now the U.S. is putting a bunch of defensive assets in place to protect U.S. interests in the Middle East after they smack Iran again. And I think this time they're going to take out leadership. Now, I hear a lot of people saying you can't attack Iran because that's going to cause all the people to rally around the flag. And I call BS on that.
What the hell are they
Who
talking
said-
about? That might
said
no,
that?
he's not wrong. He's
No,
not
but who
wrong.
said it? I'm wondering.
That is the prevailing argument against
leftists, yeah.
slapping Iran right now. They go,
This is a
Yeah, of course.
right
This has to be-
argument.
this
Yeah.
has to remain an Iranian people
Jeez.
thing against the government. It can't be an American thing that's led by the Americans against the government because
Tim
then
Kaine, just so you know, Senator Tim Kaine, who was formerly Hillary Clinton's VP person. The name Tim really goes far when you're running for VP. And former governor of Virginia. He's one of the people that came out and said this go on yesterday on one of those.
Wait,
nitwit
let me
shows.
be clear. He's saying that if there was a full scale U.S. invasion, or if is he saying even surgical hits and support?
No, now you want me to look at what Tim Kaine
They're
says?
basically
No, I'm
saying
asking
anything.
because it's a dumb take. But if someone is saying the U.S. can't help at all, if they're saying
you know
if
what?
the U.S. went in full boots on the ground before the Iranian like Reza Pahlavi takes control, okay, then there's at least some narrative sense to it. But I'm curious what is actually being said there.
It is
Senator Tim Kaine says U.S. military action in Iran would be a massive mistake. That's just the tag. You guys go on. I'll find the exact
I think
quote.
Amos Hochstein said the same thing, that if this has to be, they told us, they claim, Hochstein claims that they were in contact with the people that are leading these demonstrations in Iran. And they said, support us, but not too much, because it can't look like an American op. This has to be by the people. And for the last 30 years, the people have been trying to get rid of this tyrannical regime that came in on the wings of the useful idiots. All of the liberals were supporting them. And then when they got in, they rounded them up and shot them all.
Yep.
The
So,
same
you know
people
what my response to that is, though, is that I can imagine if America, the big bad Trump, or Israel, big bad Zionists came in and they were helping, quote unquote, too much. I can imagine that the optics for the already against Israel and already against America crew, like the Ilhan Omars we were talking about, or the Tuckers and all of that, the people who already hate America and Israel, they would then start saying that stuff. It would give them fuel. But the people inside Iran, they want the help.
That's exactly what he said. He said it would have the effect of giving the Iranian regime the ability to say it's the U.S. that's screwing our country up.
Okay,
right?
Fair enough. That is true. It would give them the ability to say that. But you know who would believe it? Those who are already dumb and in the tank for that kind of perspective. The actual people who need help need help. The idea, a friend of mine said in a chat that I was in the other day, that if they see that America has to, or Israel has to bomb a missile factory or a bomb factory or an Air Force base because they see they're about to go drop a bunch of bombs on the protesters, that's okay. We're allowed to do that without, well, no, I guess we got to let everyone die. It's just a stupid perspective.
I'll tell you who makes that argument.
They get fuel are just morons.
The same people that make the argument that helping the protesters by taking out some top leaders in Iran and taking out some of their their weapon systems are the same people that say every time Israel goes and kills these terrorists, they're creating six more terrorists.
Yeah.
The same people never make the case that every time a terrorist blows up a bus in Israel, that maybe they're creating 1,000 more Israelis that are out to get them. No. It only works one way. Always.
Right.
Only works one way. They don't
Oppressor
understand.
oppressed.
What don't they understand? They don't understand cause and effect.
That's right.
But yes, and I quoted you the other day by saying that. But go on to his point. What's always funny about that is if you take out terrorists, maybe 6 less will be born. Okay. I don't really...
at the rate that they multiply, if you take out terrorists, maybe 60 won't be born.
Right. Maybe 10. I mean, how come nobody ever says that? The reverse argument on that. You heard it here first from Judah Friedman. That will be a post. Go on. I got you to laugh because of that.
Very exciting.
And but getting back to this, I don't know exactly what President Trump should do, but I do know negotiating with Iran as supposed. Listen. This is just supposedly, I don't trust the Wall Street Journal. I don't trust sources within the White House. I think only President Trump knows what he wants to do, but there's certain people, they say supposedly in the JD Vance camp that want to negotiate. Again, I have an old thing I used to say to people, go on, especially when it came to the Taliban. How do you negotiate with people that live in caves? What exactly are you offering them? Another cave? Like where do the negotiations,
This is another post, isn't it?
Lots of goats.
Like what? No, but I was being serious. Like, what do you offer somebody willing to live in a cave? You really can't offer them much. So what are you willing to offer somebody that's willing to die for 72 virgins? 100, what are you going to say?
Let's just touch on the 72 virgins for a second, because it's always them sending the young ones out to go get their 72 virgins and die in the name of the cause, but it's never the older guys. The older guys always want to sit in their lavish mansions and send the little ones
billions
out.
of dollars.
Yeah. So I think they don't want to die, and that's how you negotiate. That's what Trump told the Taliban. Remember that the first Trump term, he actually gave the guys coordinates to his house, and he goes, "If you don't comply, I know where you live."
And go on. The other misnomer is that they're female virgins.
Squad just hanging out up there waiting for Omar.
With the Bucha boys, you ever see the Bucha boys that they have in Afghanistan now? They're not allowed to see women. Women are not allowed to leave the house. This is the most insane take, but this is true. We're going to put it up on our X and our Instagram. I think it's already up on our X. They have these boys, because boys are not haram. The girls have to stay home because that's just terrible. So they have these boys that are dancing around and twerking for the older men, and the older men bang them in the butt. And that's okay, because it's not females.
Yeah.
Well, no,
go on.
It's not okay, but it's called the down low.
It was, a word that's used in the Black community quite often. But go on. I just want to say this. I know we're not making light of the situation as far as the protesters go.
Absolutely.
Because God, everybody that knows us, I can't stop looking at my phone to see. My heart breaks for the people of Iran. It truly does. And it doesn't for the people of Hollywood. But I want people to understand this Islam thing is a freaking lunatic joke. But the problem is they're a death cult that's a joke. And unless we take them seriously, go on. And, as you saw what I wrote the other day, if anybody in America wants the Somalis out and is terrified of the Iranian invasion, but doesn't want to deal with Iran, you're a hypocrite that I never want to speak to again a day in my life.
100%.
Okay, because go on getting rid of this regime in Iran helps get rid of China, helps get rid of Russia. I mean, forget about
this
that.
Literally is something that changes the landscape of the planet when it comes to politics, when it comes to our enemies, when it comes to potential war. Trump shouldn't legitimize an illegitimate regime by, especially now that their legitimacy is collapsing even further. And just moments ago, there was an announcement that Trump is now putting a 25% tariff on any country that does business with Iran. He's tightening the noose now. So the idea that they came out to him, hey, can we renegotiate? Because they know he likes to negotiate. So there is what's the thing he likes the most? Let's target that. He likes to do deals. Hey, we got a deal. We could do a deal with you. Let's do a deal. And instead he's like, how about I go ahead and kill all your other partners too? And timing matters. He's not going to undercut the protesters. He's not going to demoralize the opposition movement. And frankly, Trust is non-existent with these people. These are the people that are literally murdering protesters in the streets. And what did the Ayatollah just do? He went on Russian, on social media and writing in Russian, he's threatening the United States. Did you see this, by the way?
Yeah.
It's
Who
the
did this?
Ayatollah Khomeini
In
put
Russian?
on in Russian. Now, why in Russian? Because A, he's declaring his allegiance to Putin, and B, he is playing psychological games, or trying to, with Washington. He forgets who he's dealing with a little bit, but that's what it is. It's theatrics. It's posturing. It's not strategy. And Guy Goldstein, contributor to the show occasionally, mentioned to me, we've been talking about this a lot. This is something that we're both very involved in, what's going on in Iran. And he said, when the Khomeini is tweeting, he's in trouble. And I thought it was a brilliant take, because it's absolutely true. Every time he starts to put stuff on social media, it's because he's desperately trying to figure out how to navigate something that, like, the vice is closing. Right now, it reeks of insecurity, and how ironic that he's doing it in Russia. Right? He's aligning himself with Russia, and the entire world is watching as Russia itself is facing international isolation. So it's not projecting power. It's clinging to any partner that is willing to share a stage with him. It's very obvious stuff. And this is just kind of interesting, realpolitik, is that the way he posted in Russian was like a bad Google AI translation. And it makes the whole thing look like geopolitical cosplay in the end, instead of serious statecraft. So this is a guy who knows he's in trouble. He knows that his regime is falling, and he's pulling any string he can to try and stay afloat. It's not going to work, I hope.
So
I don't want to make any determination that it's done, but I hope it's not going to.
Obviously we think the same way. Man, there's this 25% tariff. Do you just think that's part of Trump's plan? It's a little stall tactic.
Did you see this?
Yeah, he's putting on a 25% tariff to any country that does business with Iran, which is one business, which is oil, but which they're still somehow exporting. What is it, 2 million barrels a day? Man, do you think this is part of the plan, or do you think, what do you, I don't even know how to read the situation right now.
I think
you seem to.
No, I think it is part of the plan. So Trump has been pretty consistent with everything that we've been doing over the past, let's say, year, which is he comes in, he wants to detangle, does not want to get bogged down in wars, gives people the off-ramp, but he also has a stick. And the stick is both tariffs and military might. We're the strongest military in the world. We're finally wielding our power against these cockroaches that are nipping at us and taking them out and showing the world, listen, we can do it if we need to. That move that we did with Maduro in Venezuela was genius. It was a masterclass. So with the Iranians, he threatened them that he's going to hit them hard if they start killing the protesters. They started killing protesters. Now they masterclass in negotiations. The Iranians are probably some of the best at negotiating. They're having their president or whatever, the moderate, the good cop, versus Khomeini, the bad cop, reach out and say, oh, we want to negotiate. We want to talk. Mm-hmm. It's just a stall tactic. Trump sees right through it, but he will call them on it. He'll put together a whole list of demands, and if they don't adhere, then he's going to smack them.
Yeah, supposedly he did put a list of demands together, which are obviously they would never give in to those demands. But Golan, I want to move on a little bit, because a friend of ours called me this morning, and he's in the industry and he cares a lot. He has an amazing family, and he worries about his kid's future, as every American, but he worries about his children's future. And he was talking to me about the fact that at the Golden Globes last night, and for people that say, well, why are you watching the Golden Globes? Well, if you're in the industry, you're sort of forced to watch portions of the Golden Globes. There wasn't a neary of a mention of what's going on in Iran right now. Not one single word. I mean, not a word about what's going on in Iran. And I you could try to understand it. I mean, obviously, there's only one thing I could think of, is that Jews are not involved, supposedly. I can't.
I mean, I hate to reiterate the no Jews, no news story, but I'll tell you what's interesting is you are talking about a place where, first of all, can I just point out, I didn't watch the Golden Globes and I couldn't give two Fs or an S, but I will say that at the Golden Globes, there were actual Iranian filmmakers, people who are anti the IRGC, anti the regime, like Jafar Panahi, who his film won the Palme d'Or in Cannes. It's competing. It had, I think, a Golden Globe nominations, screenplay, and maybe Best Picture drama. And so he's there. It's a genuine Iranian story, roots in what's going on right now. Not a mention, not a nod in his direction. And these are the same people who, at the previous Golden Globes, were like F ICE and F Israel and F this and F that. And you notice that all the people who wore the bloody red, murder Jews hand pins this time around were wearing Renee Good pins and anti-ICE pins. So I think it also comes down to not just no Jews, no news. That is definitely true. But the handlers, as I call them, who determine what everybody is supposed to care about on, let's say, the left, they decided this is the one. Y'all focus on ICE. And so what else is there? Nothing. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be on the news. It's not going to be on social media. It's not going to be on the Golden Globes. Just focus all your energy on ICE. Why? Because there's a narrative they're trying to push. And the narrative doesn't work if you're talking about a Muslim regime, an Islamist regime that is about to fall, or Khomeini, who is the puppet of most terror that is going on around the world, by the way, all the way to Venezuela. No, we're not going to talk about it. Why? Doesn't fit our narrative. And we see it happening over and over again. Part of that is because there's no Jews, and part of that is because that's not how you bring down America, is by showing an American enemy falling. You got to bring down America by showing American institutions are corrupt. So ICE is going to be our target. That's the other reason.
Yeah, no, man, it's a great explanation, by the way. Thank you for that. Man, it's one of those things. How do you, obviously these people have zero moral compass, like zero. But how could you not be on X right now or any of these things and not be witnessing what's going on in Iran and not have it break your heart? And honestly, I have no idea, man, how they're going to vote after. I have no idea if they're going to be pro-Israel, anti-Israel. I have no idea. I just know that I love that Cenk Younger came out and said, I'm all for the people of Iran being free, but not through America. And I'm like, so let me get this straight, jackass. I want to see you run through the streets protesting without a gun as the IRGC has their weapons just pointed at you, mowing you down. How brave of you to say this. Where's Piers Morgan having a panel on this? No Piers Morgan panels tonight on Iran right now? What's going on with the at least 10,000 people that
not going to get the clicks and the views.
You
for
know
the
what?
Horrors
Can I tell you
that you're talking about?
These are horrors, and I'm going to tell you something. I disagree. I think anybody I talk to, even on Truth Social, that I never thought would be interested in this type of conversation, are actually really interested in what's going on in Iran.
Can I tell you a quick anecdotal story that I think says everything? You're saying they would be interested.
Use the word anecdotal, though.
Anecdotal, because it's my story, or it's actually a friend of mine's story. So it's one person's story, but I think it's very indicative of what we're talking about. There is a group that a friend of mine is involved with, taking Christians to Israel. And good schools, good standing, good moral, upstanding people go to Israel. And the idea is to show them the reality after all the propaganda and the lies that they saw online. So they go there. And what they discovered was, you're talking about well-educated, quote unquote, you're talking about good-hearted Christian people. They had to start from way further back than they expected because they didn't know what happened on October 7th. And then, which is part one of the story. Part two is they go back to their colleges, and the idea is they want to now share what they discovered with people who are at least open-minded enough to listen. And they weren't able to share any of the new information that they discovered in Israel. Why? Because the other people in their classes also didn't know what happened on October 7th. So they had to go all the way back, and they ran out of time. So you're talking about people who are in communities where they are being forced to make very definitive choices about how they would act and what they believe about stuff they know nothing about, stuff that would shock the conscience. How do you not know what happened on October 7th? It just is not part of the conversation, because social media doesn't allow it, because the media doesn't allow it, because everything that skews against goodness doesn't allow it. So the same thing is happening here. I've talked to many people who are already, like you do, in our camp, who are like, hey, you're political, you know what's going on in Iran. Some of them, yes, some of them, no. But when I talk to people who are just, quote unquote, normal, but educated, good people, they have no idea what's happening in Iran right now. And every time it happens, my jaw drops to the floor. So that's part of it, is the ignorance. And I say this, my wife said, well, wouldn't you consider me ignorant because I decided I don't want to watch the news anymore? It's just bad. I said, no, because you decided I can't take it. And you don't know anything, so you wouldn't proffer an opinion. The ignorant people are the ones who know nothing and then run their whatever bad word I just suppressed in my head, mouths constantly about stuff they know nothing about. Those are the ignorant people. And right now the world is ignorant.
Man,
When you see world leaders, today there was the guy who's running for Nancy Pelosi's seat in California, Weiss, I believe his name is. He's one of those, as a Jew, comes out and he goes, Israel's genocide in Gaza, whatever. He finally got forced to say it by the woke left. They forced him to say it. At the same time, I saw a video of them putting out a thing with the red triangle above his head because he's not woke enough, right? So when you see the leader of Spain, leader of Turkey,
Pedro
and
Sanchez,
the United Nations and Amnesty International and all these supposedly respected leaders and organizations that are coming out with the false claim of genocide, which is demonstrably false because the population has actually increased during this war. Mm-hmm. And if Israel wanted to, I saw a great thing of 10 questions as you got to ask anybody who's claiming the genocide thing. It's like, if they were trying to commit genocide, how come they didn't succeed? Number one, why didn't they succeed? If they were trying to commit genocide, how come they dropped 200,000 bombs, but there's only 57 or 67,000 deaths, the majority of whom are Hamas members by Hamas's own account? How is that genocide? Like, there are so many examples. Why are they doing the leaflets? Why are they asking people to move? Why are they telling them where we're coming? I mean, all of this stuff. And I wish Israel would stop doing that, actually. I wish they would stop dropping the leaflets and stop telling them when they're coming. You go in, you get the bad guys, and if there's some casualties with the civilians, so be it. It's war. But when they drop the leaflets in a neighborhood and they say we're coming in, who do you think leaves together with the civilians? When the civilians are usually forced to stay by Hamas. So this is where we're at. We're in a place in our society where truth no longer matters and leaders no longer lead. They are being led by the masses. So, what is a woman? Nobody knows. You can't say it anymore. Grown men who are mentally ill that want to be in little girls' changing rooms and locker rooms, these people think it's okay. Little boy who thinks he's a girl or a fire truck or a furry, he gets his wiener chopped off. They're doing all this insane stuff.
It gets reassigned. Yeah. You're 100% correct. I just want to move on. This is a story I do not want to not bring up, which is the Mississippi burning, which is over the weekend. There was the biggest synagogue in Mississippi was set ablaze.
Oldest.
Sorry?
I think it's the oldest temple in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's also, I think this also might be the second time it was burned to the ground, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, no, the first time it survived, that was when the KKK tried to firebomb it, and it survived. This is the time. It's like when you see the Holocaust it's like when you see the Holocaust survivor that died on October 7th. It's like you went through a major thing, and then you managed to succumb to it the second time around. It's even more tragic. This church was a symbol of standing up against that kind of hate. KKK also, by the way, started by leftists, just as an FYI for those of you interested in the history of it, by Democrats.
Well, that's my favorite thing, just to take that one step further, because I would always argue with people about this, because everybody always loves to say, about the governor that got shot, Wallace, that he was a Dixiecrat, and all Dixiecrats became Republicans, right? And Dinesh D'Souza perfectly pointed out in one of his good documentaries that it was only 1 out of 200 that became Republicans. Anyway, sorry to go on. And his name is, just so you know, Stephen Spencer Pittman, and he admitted setting Israel on fire, calling it the synagogue of Satan. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't know his political party yet. I am interested in finding that out. Go on.
No, but do you think, I have to ask this question as someone who debates these morons online, or at least used to until I shut down most of my social media. When someone says the synagogue of Satan, they are coming from a specific perspective. Now, we don't know, so I'm speculating. Okay. But the synagogue of Satan is one of those phrases where it is a misinterpretation of the Christian Bible. As someone who studied theology, as someone who studied comparative religion, as someone who has read the Bible, as well as the Quran and the Torah, I'm not going to pretend like I am the foremost expert when it comes to this, but this is one that, much like almost everything, where they're like, I got 5 arguments against the Jews, and it's the same 5 arguments that throughout all of history, This is yet another example of it. The synagogue of Satan is a phrase that is a misinterpretation of the Christian Bible, in which they say the Jews are the synagogue of Satan, instead of saying that those who impersonate the Jews are the synagogue of Satan. And it is something that is used on a regular basis to justify violence against Jewish people. So I have a bad feeling this was a woke writer and not a leftist, but we'll find out soon enough.
We'll find out soon enough. And also, again, according to JD Vance, it can't be a woke writer because anti-Semitism is not on the rise in the Republican Party.
Interestingly, Donald Trump doesn't agree.
Yeah, interestingly enough. And men brought this up to me on the phone because when I called him, for the people that are not familiar with this, first of all, a lot of people are not familiar with this story. As somebody brought up in the rants, you could find us live streaming most days on Rumble. For those that are listening to the audio, is that this has been this isn't a major story they're talking about. You're talking about, like you said, the oldest synagogue in Mississippi. This should be a major monstrous story. It was created, I think, in 1860. Survived the Klan firebombing it, and some whatever the other night sets it ablaze at 3 a.m. And Donald Trump, actually, it was a New York Times article where he was talking to them, and he said, we have no place for anti-Semitism in the party. He brought up his daughter being his daughter being Jewish and his 3 grandchildren being Jewish. And I had never heard him actually bring that up. You said you had before, so I'll trust you on that one.
I have heard it as well.
Yeah. So, but I was actually very impressed that he did it, and I think he realizes that there is a problem. I think he realizes that when Tucker Carlson calls Byron Donalds, what does he call him? Apac Shakur? That we have a problem in our party. Not Tucker Carlson, the guy that's running for, the guy that Tucker is propping up, Fishback, I think, or something like that, is cement. I was actually very happy that
who is this guy who are we talking about? Who's this Fishback guy?
The guy that Tucker Carlson is endorsing for governor of Florida over Byron Donalds.
Okay, so this is Byron Donalds' Republican opponent?
Yes, Byron Donalds. It's good he's the congressman from Florida who's the heir apparent who's got Trump's endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's baffling. I applaud President Trump for coming out and making that statement. It's baffling to me that JD Vance with a straight face could make these statements. I'm at a loss for words. I don't understand. Honestly, I don't understand.
You're talking about which part is the part you don't understand? The JD Vance would say there's
his name is James Fishback. Just so you know, his name is James Fishback, who Tucker is endorsing.
Yeah, he's challenging the establishment in the Florida governor.
Yeah, he's challenging the establishment.
Byron, yeah.
Yeah, and
the establishment, Tucker, Byron Donalds, like he's been there for 90 years. He's 40 years old.
As in the established guy. But But by the way, just to be clear, in terms of endorsement, he can't vote there for governor. And he's saying, if I was there, I would totally vote for Fishback. And then he goes on and on with an anti-Semitic rant. But what is the part that you can't wrap your mind around? And I'm curious.
I don't know how with a straight face JD Vance could claim that there isn't a problem with anti-Semitism.
Well, he's done it a handful of times, and now twice very publicly, but he's done it a handful of times in small bits and bites too. Think that either I you know what? I don't want to speculate. We don't traffic in speculation. So
I'm just saying it's baffling to me. I don't get it.
I will say it's baffling to me as well. And I think it speaks to something problematic when you hear a guy who also says that also talk about trying to negotiate with Iran. Judah, I didn't have that story. Can you tell us a little bit about that one too, since we're on JD?
Sorry, that there are rumors coming out of the White House that Trump wants to strike, he wants to negotiate. So I want to tell you something somebody said to me a long time ago, and it was one of the greatest lessons I've ever been given on. When you look at some of the best presidents, you look at their experience and their past, right? So you look at a guy like Ronald Reagan, great relationship with the Jewish community. Why? Because he came from California, not originally, but he dealt with a lot of Jews. So he had a worldview which wasn't isolated to isolationism and the old tropes. When you look at people like Nixon, always had an affinity for Jews since he was a kid with his mother. Clinton also had a lot of interactions with Jewish people. When you look at the presidents that didn't necessarily have that, whether it would be Bush, Obama, Obama had with the wrong types of Jews. So I understand it's very perplexing, but it's getting out of America. We don't know who JD Vance's friends have been. We don't know the people, the crowds he's associated with. We like to think sometimes, well, he's the vice president, he's a worldly guy, but how much of that hillbilly is still left in him? How much of where he comes from? So we don't always know. So I'm not saying in any way trying to put words into JD Vance's mouth or say anything about it, but there's something in life to meeting a bunch of different people and being well traveled and being well sourced and being well knowledgeable.
But how does that dovetail into? By the way, I looked it up. There are multiple reports on this that Vance is pushing Trump to get into negotiations and talk to Iran and all of that. And so what you're saying is interesting, and I agree with you. I think that
I was just answering one part of the question.
Well, so I will say, as someone who was born in Phoenix, Arizona, despite being half Israeli and living half my life in Israel, I was often, for the Americans, especially in parts of Phoenix, I was the first Jew they'd ever talk to, or the first Jew they'd ever really.
So was I. Since
where were you? In Brooklyn?
There you go. So it's one of those things that I recognize that sometimes.
Just for perspective, I just want to tell you something. I worked in Arizona. Remember for that guy, Don Lapre? He had that Making Money show, that making every 900 commercial. Remember?
Yes.
It was Don Lapre from My Tiny Bed. He ended up committing suicide because of fraud.
But
I remember, and I wanted to take off for Yom Kippur. And I don't know, and they said to me, is that a really important day?
You can't hold it against them.
No. It's not about holding against them. It's about recognizing that they don't have exposure.
Right.
So if they don't have exposure, the idea of, by the way, it's the same thing. It's like they used to say, like Will and Grace changed America's relationship with the gay community because they were like, that's how I would deal with that situation. They're just like me, like that sort of thing. And I was that Jew for a lot of people where they were like, I had a girlfriend who, I'm not exaggerating, asked me at some point when our relationship got a little deeper if there was a way for me to show her my horn. And so this is the world we're living in, where these pervasive kind of myths and lies are just sitting there and they can't be refuted until you actually interact with somebody. But the question I would have when it comes to JD, who, whether he's interacted or not, has been at least a little more worldly and can see that there are bad actors and good actors in the world, and his book talks about that a little bit too, is for him to suddenly be at least suggesting that there is a reason to reward brutality or to flinch at pressure or to negotiate with authoritarian terrorist sponsors, to undermine the strength of both the protesters in the United States, send the wrong signal domestically and internationally, appease all of the rest. Is that just exposure? If these reports are true, I will say
no, they're two totally separate things. Remember, he was in the Signal chat as saying he was not for the first Iran attack. We have actual evidence of him saying that, and that he didn't look at them as a problem. He looks at Britain and Europe as more of as the bigger issue. So I don't know who has his ear. Listen, this is something, I was talking with somebody about Richard Nixon before, and Bill Clinton used to go to Richard Nixon for foreign policy advice. That takes a special person to say, as a president, I don't trust everybody in my inner circle. Let me go to Richard Nixon and talk to Richard Nixon, who might know a little bit. This is foreign policy is something you have to learn and study and know. But you have to have that thing in you of wanting to expand on that. That's why Rubio is getting so much light right now, man, is because he's a foreign policy expert. He has studied this. He has been in the Senate. He hasn't just won one race. He's won a handful of races, not a handful, a couple of races. And he understands this stuff. He comes from a place of oppression like Cuba.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, please cut me off.
What I was going to say is what I like most about Marco Rubio is that he's not driven by ideology. He goes with the facts, and you see that.
Great point.
He speaks and the way his worldview and everything that's coming out of him, as opposed to a lot of these people on the left that you see where they change their narrative based on, they change the statements based on the narrative. So the last female to be killed in Minnesota, it's a great example. I just remembered it. The last female to be killed
was by a Somali cop.
A Somali cop shot a white woman, killed her. I think he went to jail, and then his conviction was overturned. But none of us have heard of it. None of us had heard a word of it. None of us heard a word about Tampon Tim Waltz in 2020 signed a statute in Minnesota law that states as follows. Statute 609, if a driver accelerates towards an officer standing in front of the vehicle, this causes immediate life-threatening danger. The officer does not need to wait until impact. He can act based upon apparent intent and proximity. Tampon Tim signed that in Minnesota, which is a classic case of what just happened, yet all of these people, Fry and Tim and all of them, are coming out against what the officer actually did in favor of the person who did it. So they change what they say and what they mean based on their ideology. You don't see that coming out of Rubio. Rubio has been the same for the last 30 years, saying the exact same things. He's been on point, which is why we all love him.
He's not that old. He's not that old. 15 or 16
I knew him when
years.
he was in grade school. He's like, we're going to get rid of Castro and we're going to do all this stuff.
Let's be real. I mean, Rubio is not that old, but you just raised he just raised a great point. You see, here's the problem. Every time the three of us say something, people could be like the Zionist cabal, right? You know, like we're somehow, and I've always tried to make the point that so much of my foreign policy has nothing to do with me being Jewish. I mean, I've been saying the same things.
Let me just say one thing. I am an American first Zionist, proud of it.
Yeah.
All of it. They don't contradict each other.
That's exactly right. Just like Christianity and Zionism don't contradict each other.
Right. But my bigger point, Golan, is that it's like I look at what's going on with Iran. I'm not looking through the lens of Israel. I'm looking through the lens of China, Russia, what's going on to the people of Iran. That's what I'm looking at.
By the way, I'm not going to detour into this, but I will say today, I have these conversations on a regular basis with people who don't know any better. And I was having a conversation today with someone who was coming at me about Greenland. Is this real? How could you support it? And I just said, well, because if America must take it, because if America doesn't, Russia and China will. And the person stopped talking, stood up straight and was like, I never thought of it that way. They literally, they were like vitriolically going after, because Trump. But sometimes you just need to say, this is what's good for the world. And by the way, I just, as a side note, what you were just saying about how nobody even heard of that story because that doesn't fit the narrative. I just read Coleman Hughes' book and The End of Race Politics in America. And in the book, he has his opening example. It's how he starts the book. He's like, there's a man who was killed in 2016. The police showed up. They restrained him. They put a knee on his neck. They held him down, face down for 13 minutes. He kept saying, you're going to kill me. I can't breathe. He died on the scene. The officers were laughing and joking while they were restraining him. No officer was convicted. And he's like, you don't know who I'm talking about, do you? You thought I was going to say George Floyd. No, I'm talking about Tony Timpa, who was a white man killed by Dallas police in 2016. No news about it, no nationwide protests, no riots, no celebrity hashtags, no media obsession, not even a whiff of it anywhere. And it's a perfect example. I thought it was a great way for him to start the book. And he uses that as an almost quasi gotcha, like audience complicity moment of you assume you know what's going on because the media tells you what to think. And if the media doesn't tell it to you, not that you think I'll assess myself, you know nothing about it. So
Perfectly
you are
said,
always behind the eight ball.
And I think that's a big reason why we do the show. We also do it because we don't try to. So I think before when we were talking about when Mend asked his question, I'm trying to be on my best behavior right now, Mend, and not go on the rumor. I don't think you were trying to get me to say something because No, I know, but I'm really trying to be on my best behavior. But here's the reality is you have Tucker Carlson talking about Bibi Netanyahu running the state of Florida, which is you're hearing some of the most ludicrous tropes thrown out there right now that just aren't just a danger to Jews. This is a danger to America. Okay, when you have these idiot talking heads out there, I mean, my God, can you imagine if Megyn Kelly, who's got one of the loudest voices, was talking about the people of Iran and not Mark Levin? Can you imagine if these people were actually having real conversations? How many, it's like, did you see that demonstration on the street and the U-Haul ran into the Iran protesters yesterday? And
they released who it was. I saw it. The guy looked Iranian.
He was
like
Iranian. He was Iranian, but he was pro IRGC. I think he was pro.
I'm wondering if he came here illegally because a lot of Iranian agents flooded into the country under Biden.
Yeah. So, this isn't just when we're talking about this stuff, this isn't, I'm not an ideologue. I'm not. One of my favorite things was was Newt Gingrich. I love Newt Gingrich when he was the Speaker of the House. He was the last great Republican Speaker of the House, and he got Bill Clinton. Basically, he had him by the you-know-whats. But Bill Clinton, to stay in office, became a pragmatist. And there's something sometimes about it's not everything is an ideological thing. Sometimes you have to be just pragmatic about a certain situation. And so that's what we try to talk about. The woke right is killing the Republican Party. You can't dispute that at this point. We are giving them so much ammo going into the midterms. So, which has nothing to do with Israel. Tucker Carlson goes after Trump on every way he can. And I got to applaud the Fifth Column. It's a podcast, I guess, that was on Megyn Kelly that she would go to. They've decided not to go on her show anymore. So good for these guys. That's going to cost them a lot of viewership. So God bless these guys, and I hope more people follow.
Wow, good for them. I had not heard that. That is really great to hear.
They pulled themselves off Megyn Kelly. So God bless the Fifth Column. And I'd never even heard of the podcast before, so I'm not familiar with it. But good for them. And the last thing I want to say is Trump today turned back the banks were forced to give loans to illegal immigrants. Trump overturned that today. So banks are no longer forced to lend money to illegal immigrants. So good for Trump for doing this. And the last thing I want to say is this. Part of the article, Golan, I don't know if you saw the whole New York Times article, but part of it said, I guess they were asking Trump about the next president. And
he said his answer was really interesting.
Men, did you see this?
Not New York Times, New York Post, by the way.
New York Post, and he said, we have 3 years and 1 month left, but he's doing a great job, Trump said regarding Vice President Vance. Marco is doing a great job, too.
Like, apropos of nothing, he just veers over to Marco.
He just veered over to Marco. He's like, I don't want to do that, but they have great strengths, but somewhat different, but they're great, he said. They're both doing a great job. He wasn't asked about Marco Rubio, man. So people could read however they want into that.
Well, I think what's happening is that Trump's realizing that with the midterms coming up and JD Vance giving cover to Tucker and Megyn Kelly and all these other insane people, he's ruining the chances of the Republicans retaining the House. And if they lose the House, he's going to be a lame duck. There's not going to be much that they're going to be able to do. Plus, the Democrats that are running the House are going to bring up 700 more impeachment trials and just waste the time to run out the clock on this presidency. So I'm surprised Trump is not coming out more forcefully. I think behind the scenes, he's probably working on JD to get him, because he needs JD on board to rally the party to pull off the midterms. If JD stays in the Tucker camp, that's not going to happen. So I think that Trump is smart. He's working covertly behind the scenes to try to fix this absolute huge issue. It'll be a 5-alarm fire if the Democrats take the House, as far as him and his policy and as far as him and impeachment goes. So it makes sense that he's doing this thing where he's playing both Marco and JD for the next president. I think it's going to be Marco, but does JD
you think he's ultimately gonna back Marco?
I think so.
Wow. Hearing you say that is really interesting. All right, curious.
I think so, and I think JD's now has a choice where he could challenge Marco, or he could settle for VP again and then run in 8 years. And don't forget, JD Vance is really young. But the fact that he's been influenced by Tucker and the Tucker camp to taking on that narrative, the Qatar-fed narrative, and he doesn't see it. And he doesn't see that Tucker is so far off the reservation that he's toxic to JD. That is bewildering to me, because JD's not stupid. So when he does that, it's almost like, remember Tucker had that Palestinian pastor. I think he's an imitation Christian. He's completely anti-Israel, lives under the Palestinian Authority, which under them in Bethlehem, Christians went from 60% to something like 12%. There's been a Christian exodus under the Palestinian Authority-led Bethlehem. Christians are now a tiny minority. And this pastor, who has nothing to do with Israel, he lives under Palestinian Authority control, goes on Tucker riling against Israel. And I think JD doesn't understand that dynamic. And he hears those guys and he goes, oh, look, more Christians are being persecuted.
You think he really doesn't understand it?
I can't understand any other logical explanation as to why he would be going along with this stuff. I don't think he's bought. I don't think that he went into this with some sort of, anti-Israel, anti-Jew bias. I think that he's being whispered to by people that are bought. And he, it considers Tucker a friend and they have a long relationship and he just doesn't see it. And Tucker's making a compelling argument somehow to him.
By the way, just for the record, I don't disagree with you. I'm also shocked to hear, as Golan is, for you to make these statements. For anybody that's tuning in to the daily daily cheat sheet for the first time, the dude was one of the most thoughtful and definitely did not think like this a week and a half ago, Golan. But to finish up the show, I think it's sort of simple. I think listen, the people that raised him up were Peter Thiel, as they call him. Somebody online calls them
and Peter Thiel's another guy I look up to and love that guy.
As somebody calls them, the PayPal mafia, Golan, which is a term I had never heard before. He's got the PayPal mafia and 1789 Capital behind him, and those are the people that got him into the White House.
Can you briefly just tell our listeners who the 1789 the group is?
Yeah, 1789 is now Don Jr. sits on the board. They have over $2 billion worth of investments. It is Neil Patel. It is Rebecca Mercer. The other guy's name, I'm blanking on, the Muslim guy, the Islamic guy's name. If you could grab me his name, just go to 1789 Capital. And they are, and listen, Tucker and Don Jr. have openly admitted they got JD Vance in. So, and I know, I feel terrible right now when I went with talking about people that men looks up to. But remember, Peter Thiel stopped having support for President Trump towards the end of his first term. He tried to get Blake Masters, who's part of the PayPal mafia, into the Senate seat in Arizona. And so these are the people that run JD Vance. They do.
You're talking about Omid Malik, by the way, is the name you were looking for.
Omid Malik, thank you. These are the people that run JD Vance. And these are the people, it's like, listen, I don't know what it's like to come from where he comes from. I don't want to go on about this, as I've discussed in the past. But these people, became friends with him at a certain point, and, he shows blind loyalty to everybody but his family sometimes, and the American people.
Well, don't forget, he co-founded an organization with one of the co-founders of 1789 Capital.
Right. So that did not do very well.
That was Rockbridge, right? That did not do very well. But the Rockbridge thing led to 1789 Capital existing. So he is deeply intertwined with this organization.
Who are the investors in 1789 Capital?
Rebecca Mercer, we just brought up. Omid Malik.
Yeah.
Rebecca Mercer, her family is the Mercer Publishing Empire. She's worth $6 billion. So she used to heavily contribute to a lot of conservative news sites. And also sitting on the board of 1789 Capital is Chris Buzzkirk. And Chris Buzzkirk...
Not just sitting on the board, he's a co-founder as well.
Co-founder. Chris Buzzkirk was the editor of American Greatness. And Rebecca Mercer used to donate money to, guess who? American Greatness. So this is all one big...
and of course... partner in the firm as well, Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah. So just so people understand, this is actually, you could look this up. This is 1789 Capital, and look up the PayPal mafia. It's all interconnected. So listen.
But Thiel has nothing to do with 1789.
Who?
Peter Thiel.
No, Thiel has nothing to do with 1789 yet. He has nothing to do. I was just giving you the two different groups. And what does connect Thiel and 1789 Capital is Chris Buzzkirk, who started a super PAC for Blake Masters when he ran for Arizona Senate seat. And he is close with Peter Thiel.
But it's actually not totally true. I do just have to, just for our listeners, I do have to refute that. Thiel was actually an instrumental force behind the creation of 1789 Capital.
Okay. Right, because of Chris Buzzkirk.
Correct. He helped foster the relationships. He helped put together the donor network. Ultimately, when it was founded in 2022, Peter Thiel was one of the key architects of what eventually was formalized at 1789 Capital. So there was an indirect and a direct influence in what happened there. He's not like publicly disclosed as one of the partners or an owner or anything like that, but people close to 1789 Capital have brought him up as one of the backers and one of the early backers, one of the people who helped incubate the program, helped to put together strategic ideas for it, and all the rest. So he actually and also he promoted, he helped boost the profile and all sorts of other stuff. So he's actually very deeply intertwined with 1789.
I did not know that. I've made a ton of money with Peter Thiel by investing in Palantir. Peter Thiel usually has his head on straight. I don't see him on anywhere on 1789 Capital's website, but I'll take your word for it.
That's not my word. You can look all of this up.
Yeah, and it's also, listen, yeah, this isn't like I wish listen, I didn't expect to go this wonk, and I expected the episode to end about 17 minutes ago. I'm happy you're asking these questions. And you know what, man, it's important that you're asking these questions because we're actually able to give people the exact information and not sound like we're like, this is not rumor. These are facts. And these are the people that are behind JD Vance. I'm not saying anything about what JD Vance's intentions are. I have zero idea. Last thing I just want to say is good for President Trump for trying to do everything he can to preserve America from Greenland and sort of making sure our hemisphere is safe. At the same time, he realizes other hemispheres have to be safe too for us to be safe and to keep us afloat, okay? We do not need bad actors like China and Russia interfering in our everyday lives.
It actually is very much America first, what he's talking about.
It's 100% America first. So God bless him. And the last thing I'll say is God bless the people of Iran. God bless the people of Iran. And I wish there was a way that they could set up of funding them. So just God bless them. Mend, great work today. We will not see you tomorrow, but great work today. And
thank you.
Go on. Decent work.
Thank you. I'll also throw in thank God for John Fetterman yet again showing that he's got not just cojones but a moral backbone as he also is backing the Iranian protesters and backing Trump when it comes to fighting the IRGC.
You know, he turned out to be morally correct. So it's not an ideological thing. He's just saying, oh, look, more people that are being oppressed by a regime, a tyrannical regime, let's back those people. It's not controversial, but these days, the Democratic Party, anything that is
in the woke
anti-America, that side they're on.
You know what? Brilliant point. You're 100% right. It's like, Golan or whoever it was that said before, it's like, I think it was, man, I don't understand this or whatever it is. It's like, this is just about being on the right side. This has nothing to do with what party you belong to. This has to do with the party of America and the party of having a moral compass and believing in right versus wrong. We are on the side of right. There's no, if you want to debate that, fine, you're an idiot. And I have absolutely no use for you. And Men could have a conversation with you that he will blast you out on Instagram for about 20 minutes and you will not have a good day because of it. Okay, on that note, let's thank you both. I want to thank our loyal followers, our loyal listeners, everybody that listens. I want to remind you, you can find this everywhere at the Daily Cheat Sheet. Don't forget to give us that 5-star review. I want to wish everybody good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.